Hello, and welcome to the Pragmatic Product Chat series, where we tackle the biggest challenges facing today's product management, product marketing, and other market and data-driven professionals with some of the best minds in the industry. I am Rebecca Kalogeris for Pragmatic Institute and your host for this episode. Today, I'm extremely excited to have on our show Thomas Hartmann. So he is the Product Masterclass co-founder and co-author of From Project to Product Mode, Game Plan to Unlock Scalability for B2B Software. So Thomas and his team have pioneered a shift from project-focused to product-oriented strategies, which enhance team performance and foster a culture of outcome-driven innovation. And I know this is a problem, like that kind of confusion between project management and product management. And because often product management sort of gets saddled with some project management pieces, that's what first drew me to Thomas and his book. And then I read through the book and really enjoyed kind of the structure in sort of working with organizations through that change as they evolve and some of the hints in there. So I'm extremely excited to have you on, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here and talk about the ideas and what you think about it.
Excellent. All right. So I always like to start with everybody's origin story, right? Sort of the how you got where you are today and why you are so passionate about this idea of product led.
Well, where should I start? Well, let's start with the Product Masterclass, right? So I did a lot of entrepreneurship programs before COVID, right? We always had like a lot of people in the room. And then, these programs were like massive with 25 or more people, right? And then COVID came around and we couldn't do it anymore. So then we started something and applied the same, thinking like going along, sharing away for 10 weeks. That's what we did with the entrepreneurship program. And we took that and applied it to product management. And back then, my co-founder, Sebastian, he has a technical background. And what we always felt is that different perspectives in product management are underutilized, right? Back then, like a lot of people did, like when you go to educate yourself, it was always like Scrum focused. And we felt it needs a broader approach, right? So we did that Product Masterclass. We always had like 4 coaches, 8 weeks. And we did that for a while. And then, like companies came around and said like, okay, but we need it for the whole team, right? And we also had like companies where we, got into the management level. Yeah. And one company particularly approached us and said like, we need help in product management. And then we came in and we looked at it and said like, well, but, like if we compare what you do with what other, product companies do, we would say it's actually project management, right? And that was the kickstart to write the book, actually, right? And that's the story behind the book, right? So we had that project, right? And with that company, and the structure basically did fall out of this project.
So it sounds like they thought they had a product management function. What they really had was project management. So it wasn't about like, you're like, okay. So that made you could think about how are those two different and how do you really evolve an organization who's ready in some sense for a product, but doesn't have anything in place. Yeah. Anything.
Exactly. Yes. And I mean, I'm curious if you can relate to that, right? Especially in B2B context. And, I think this is important to distinguish B2B to the B2C. In B2B, often companies start off with a successful project with one client.
Yes.
Right. And then you have this beautiful software and you look at the software and you think like, wow, I think we can sell this again. Right. And then you sell it again. Right. The second customer says like, great software. Yeah. But, we need something different there. Our processes are different. And then, like you look at it and say like, well, 80% same. Right. No problem. You just, attach 20% different stuff on it. And you do that over and over again, right? And like a snowball, the software grows and you think you do a product. But we just call that project stacking, right? Because you stack basically project over project. And that's a difference, right? So when you come from a project mindset and you just, add projects on top of it, it's not product management what you do, right?
Right.
And then you have like these different worlds.
Yeah,
emerging.
you're managing custom software creation. We see this a lot now with AI companies, right? They started the same kind of thing. Like instead of, let me think about, there's some open platforms, but a lot of the solutions were really custom solutions. And then someone wanted something similar. And you do think once you have enough of those, you think, okay, there's clearly a market need.
Yeah.
We must have a product. But when you've built it as a project, everything, and you talk a lot about this in your book, everything is in a different mindset. Like your code base is not where you want it to be. There's a lot of technical debt, right? It's not, we always sell it as, oh, it's really easy. We'll just grab this from here and this from here.
Yeah.
But like, that's not actually what development has to do to make that work. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the interesting thing is it feels really good at the very beginning.
Because a lot of success.
You drag in, you get clients in, right? And then you're another project, you have more budget, like you grow. And we, like the company, we had like the first project with, they've been like 120 people.
Wow.
Really successful, right? Like 3, 4, 5 years old startup, right? Really successful. But what we saw there is everything, which all the decisions they made based on project thinking were wrong in a product mindset, right? So you really need to change the mindset 180 degrees. And that's where, people and companies struggle.
Yeah.
Right? So to make that shift. And what's important as well to mention here is, product or project, both is fine. It's not that we say, okay, everybody needs to be a product.
That's true.
Yeah?
That's true.
But the struggle always begins when you have a project company and they think, okay, but let's do products because they are more scalable.
Yeah.
But they are still, in their thinking processes and decision processes are still project. And then, typically the struggle starts somewhere, stacking enough projects. And then the complexity gets really wild and you're not able to ship anymore anything in a fastly manner. And then, people are puzzled. Okay, like what's wrong?
Right. And I think it's a valid point. There's nothing wrong with being project and being a custom shop, but you will often find that switch, like you said, when they want to scale, when they're looking for investors, things like that, where you're starting to look at the economics different, right?
Yes.
You don't want to be a body shop. Then you have to make the changes. And I think what you're also pointing out there is that shift to product mindset is not just in the product manager alone. It's not like, oh, product manager, you need to write. It is an organizational and cultural shift, which I think takes a lot of pieces, right?
Yeah. And I think this is to acknowledge exactly that point for a product leader changes totally his or her challenges, right? Because I see a lot of product leaders that they actually, work in their bubble. They think they are responsible for product management and they bring in the tools, like they want to try to bring in discovery and best practices, Marty Kagan, read the books, go to conferences, right? And they hear all this fancy stuff and they go back to their own company and think, why is it so different in my organization? And, like that is because what we call that the egg organization. In product management, like you have like 25 years, the agile mindset, implanted, right? You want to do these concepts and discovery and all the stuff, like all these best practices. But the organization around you, they basically just hand over, the feature request and ask for a finishing date in return. Right? It's just a small project, basically. Everybody else is thinking in project. Yeah, and that difference in culture, that is what brings in a lot of tension in the organizations. Fight for the resources, and even finger pointing to you need to do this and that, and the feeling that like things are not moving as fast as they should. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's interesting, like that the product as a leader of product group, you need to recognize that this is not just an effort within your department, but an effort across the way. And I imagine, and I know there's some in your book, but I also imagine when you work with clients that is a lot of the effort, is sort of that strategy, culture, and mindset, right?
Yeah.
And the number of places it touches.
Because, like within product management, you have a lot to say.
Mm-hmm.
But when the head of product or VP product or, the CPO goes to the other dimensions, marketing, sales, operations, you cannot just step into the door and say like, okay, we do it now different.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're just, you're like, who are you, right?
Right. Yes.
So it's a totally different game to change the organization. It's totally, we call that sometimes, you need to level up, like you need to change the minds and the behavior of people on your level, or even in big organizations above you in the organization. And that is a really, really tough thing to do.
Yeah. Well, yes. And one of the things that I really like about your book, that you talk about like 7 challenges of going from project to product. And again, so many of these touch wider business strategy. They absolutely touch sales. They do touch the product organization, right? Because if your team is busy in the current environment being project managers, that is workload. That leaves little time to be a product manager, right? So there needs to be a recognition there. But it was really interesting to think about, like, the sales one really popped out, right? Yeah. That if I'm in a project mode as a salesperson, the bigger the custom project, the juicier, somewhat the harder, at least seeming, the better, right?
Nice.
It's better. I get the higher price point. I've got a more stable, happy customer. Like, I am the guy who brought in the great client.
Perfect. Complex.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right?
You like
complex.
We can we can do everything. That's like the thinking.
Yeah. Right? And you also, and when you go from that to say, no, we're going to do product, often there's going to be a different price point, right? There's going to be a lot of different, and that's a tough thing to be able to both transition their expectations around that, but also it is somewhat of a different skill set, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Totally. One is almost like a sales engineer. Let me come in and understand your problem and help you graph out the most complex, cool solution for it. Right.
Yeah, totally. It's like, it's totally something different to sell something which is, like almost like a shoe, right? You cannot change a shoe. It's just a shoe. It's a hardware, right? You cannot change that, right? But when you are trained, and that's the pitfall of B2B, right? Mm-hmm. At the very beginning, you need to customize for your clients, right? And you're trained, and your mindset is like, okay, we just customize everything for our clients. But, like when you're in product mode or true product companies, they do it differently. They're really, really stubborn to do things for single clients.
Yeah.
Right. So every feature request you get in a product company, you really run through a checklist and see whether other companies want that product too, or that feature. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's what we call discovery, right? Yeah. It's just, like check if other people want that as well, is product discovery. But so many project organizations that just say like, okay, this is a great idea. I think we can resell it as well, right? And yeah, you said like, it's like, when I think about that, like with the first client, we had enough time to talk with all C-level executives, right? And in the retrospective, we call that we made an X-ray of the organization. Mm-hmm. And we compared it with what we knew great product companies are, right? And the 7 challenges that emerged always when we did that exercise. Yeah. So project organization think differently about segmentation.
Yeah, absolutely.
They think differently about pricing. They think differently about product discovery. They have a totally different structure and organization in their product department. And they have a totally different way of prioritization. And in the engineering, we have a difference in pull versus push, right? Project organization push stuff into the engineering department. Product organization pull things when it's ready to be built. And we have a totally different thing, thinking about customization. And these are the seven things which differentiate the project organizations from the product organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was interesting because I found that like segmentation and discovery touch a lot, right? Because when you're doing project work, you are focused on a customer. You're not thinking about segments, frankly, right? You're thinking about a specific buyer and not a segment. And also that segment requires real discovery to help recognize it and validate when things come in. And again, if you're not in that role, then your product team they may have the desire, but they probably don't have the time, the permission, or the muscle of doing that kind of discovery work required for segmentation and validation.
Yeah. I think if it's resonating with you so much, right? I think there's a story behind that. Like, what's the story? You had some experience with that, right?
I mean, I think I've seen it in clients that we've worked with, and I've seen it in organizations with people that I've talked to, right? And I have actually, no, that's not fair. I have myself been in an organization that was trying to switch from custom shop to a product offering. And we had an acquisition there as well, just on a completely different technology base. So there were other, fun little additions, but you can see the pressure and you can feel the tension in the organization. You guys talk about prioritization, and let's start, you tell us first what you guys say the difference in prioritization is from project to product.
Well, prioritization is interesting that you take that. Let's prioritization. Basically, it's okay. How do you decide what's on the roadmap, right? And I think the roadmap is just a mirror of filters you have beforehand. And the filters are, like segmentation. Yeah, in a project organization, if you really think in the pure structure of a project organization, they rarely have a clear segmentation because they don't need it.
Right.
Yeah, they just, a client comes and says, okay, I want X, Y, Z, right? I want to build a house, with a bubble on top. Can you build that? And you think, okay, can I do that? Yes, I can. And then you think okay, how much time will it cost me? 100 hours. Okay. Let's do 25% on top, that's my margin, and then you sell it, right? So you're not really, you don't need segmentation so much. Same with product discovery. Yeah, when you have a client who has a clear, who verbally clearly says what they need, right? Discovery seems to be additional work. Right? Why should I do discovery? Because they just told me what they need. Yeah. Right? Yep. So another filter which is falling apart, pricing as well, right? It's also a filter which is falling apart, right? So prioritization, basically, if it's really, really tough, most likely the filters beforehand don't work. Yeah, segmentation, pricing, and discovery, right? And then you end up with a huge list. Yeah. But even if you do it right, even if you have the product mindset and you filter it out, you will still have a list of features to develop, which is longer than your capacity. Yep. Yeah, you will have, and that's what's called product management, basically, right? So how do you deal with more ideas than capacities to build? Yeah. And that's what we think is prioritization, yeah? In product-driven organizations, it's more about scheduling. Yeah, they're more sequencing. Okay, what do we build next? It's less, strategic. What should we build to win that market or win that segment, right? It's more a time, resources, scheduling game, so to say.
And I think I jumped to it. This is where my mind went, is I was thinking about that. It was a fintech SaaS software company I worked at. And we were going to product, and we had a beautiful backlog of market-driven items we could never get done because we just kept getting trumped by contracts. right? Like we got, and I get that, right? You need revenue. This was a company looking, still in growth mode but it was that also, again, you could see that tension where you want to be a product led, but we're still project focused from a revenue perspective. Like that was where we were getting our revenue, and it was hard to let that go to make the investments in there. And you have a finite number of resources, right? You can't chase the dollar to give you the funding you need while building the organization. But it meant that you were never going to get past that custom, contract driven development. You were never going to be able to scale.
And that is really, like, you perfectly described the struggle of these companies, right? In that switching phase. And it really requires a lot of, no guts, no glory. It requires really guts to say no to something.
Yeah.
And when I think about strategy after writing the book, strategy for me mostly is, what do we say no to?
Yeah.
Like what is the thing we don't do? Because in project mode, you basically do everything your customer is asking for and says, like, here are some dollars, right?
Yes.
And that's a hard thing, right? If you have like a client who, like you could maybe, have $1 million, whatever, revenue, to say no, that doesn't fit our strategy. That's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to turn down near-term revenue for the belief that you will have more opportunity, right?
That's what we saw as well, right? The mindset is different. Project is a cash flow mindset, whereas product is an investment mindset. Right? I need to invest for the future because I think I can win this market. I think I can, and then I try to increase the odds, right, with product discovery to see if I really can make it happen, right?
Yep.
But that's the mindset difference.
Yeah.
Here.
And it was always like, we'll do both, was the like, we'll do both. But end of the day, right? The thing with the dollar is attached and the date that's publicized to the client wins out, right? Yeah.
So how do you change it?
Yeah. How? Yes. That one didn't change. We're no longer there. They're no longer around. So don't do that. Don't follow that model.
Yeah. So what we found is what's working is, first of all, you need to, well, let me start over. Sorry. I think it's really hard to change a whole organization. Yeah, the smaller the organization, the easier it is. Like if you have like 100, 200 people, maybe you have like on the C-level 5, 6 people. Yeah, and you need to somehow align them somehow. Yeah, and what we found out works quite well is go into the room and think, okay, what do we actually want to achieve? Why do we want to make the shift from project to product? What is it in your experience?
For here was scale. And we had investors. We had outside investors who were looking, right? And it's just,
Exactly.
Scale is what investors like. Repeatable.
Exactly. It's
predictable.
Scalability.
Yeah.
That's what we see over and over again. So now, like if you have these people in a room and ask, okay, what do we need to do in order to be more scalable? Then you start to think differently because you don't think in your small bubble anymore, right? Like beforehand, the contract with the single client for the sales guy was super attractive, right? And he was tempting, like, why don't we just sell, right? But when you think like about the bigger goals, okay, like what do we need to do in order to be scalable? Then, you have everybody aligned behind that. And then the answer typically is a little bit different because, and that's the second thing you need to do. You need to make people understand what they say no to when they say yes to that contract with the single client.
Yes.
Yeah. So really say, okay, look at that. We have we call that a complexity tax. Yeah. So if you have a lot of clients with individual features, right? It will show in the complexity of the software and in your maintenance effort and your like in your bugs and so on and so forth, right? And you can pretty simple just look at your total capacity in your organization in engineering and just make a rough assessment of how much they do for new features and how much is for maintenance and bugs and so on and so forth, right? And if it's like, let's say above 50% or something, or we already saw like companies with 70% or something, right? Then it's pretty clear that you did in the past a lot of project work instead of product work, right? And that is important, right? To understand what is the implication if I say yes to this contract. Yeah.
And it's interesting because anytime I've seen it, it has been a matter of scale, either just scale, it's scale, right? And often it's either for internal revenue, and often there's like either an investor or a desire for an investor, right?
Yes.
Who don't particularly love what we would call body shops, where like more work means more hires, right? They want something that scales in a different perspective. At the leadership level, the advantages of that may be both more concrete, right? Like, you got a stake in the ground here. But then also, like, I'm thinking again about our friend in sales. Is that attractive to him as an individual level? And how do I make it matter to all levels of the organization?
Yeah, you have like a shift in, I don't like to say the word power, but like you shift your decision processes, right? In project mode, like if you can sell it, it's great, right? So you have like, just like we said, like, like the bigger the better, the more complex the better. And so, and like if you have the incentives in the sales organization tied to that, so then you have a problem, right?
Yep.
So, like there is a lot of small adjustments and shifts in the organization to align the organization with your goal of scalability, right? Incentivize standard product sales over the individual, right? Marketing, you have also like different processes, right? Maybe you need to go down a level on the size of the company to have a more consistent market segment or something like that, right? It's on all levels of it's on all disciplines of the organization that you have to do work differently. It's not better or worse. It's just different. When I used to go to huge clients and make it more complex, that's just my, like the whole organization is set up to be like that, right? Huge clients means something different in marketing, means something different in product management, and something different in operations. So that also goes through the whole organization.
Yeah, I can see where there would be processes, systems, a variety of different things that have to be really thought out and aligned to the new goal of scale across the group.
Yes.
But one thing you also mentioned that I would love to talk a little bit more about was the shape of the product organization. Yes. Changes in project to product. Tell me a little bit more. Is it shape? Is it skill set? Is it people?
It's both. Even sometimes, like I just talked to a lead today, client, and he said like, okay, we don't have the responsibilities or we don't have the mandate to do that. Right? When you have like a project organization, you're more or less like here to schedule the work for the engineering and organize stuff, right? But in product mode, right, you need to understand the market, right? You need to make the decision in the product organization. It's hard to do these decisions, right? You need to have a product sense. You need to be exposed to the clients, right? You need to maybe go with your sales team and into the field, right? And you it needs a lot of different processes, mindset, and also education and knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have like energetic leaders, right, in organizations when they grow to 100 or 200 people, right? Often, like the CEO is, doing sales as well, right? They have like a lot of knowledge and You cannot expect, product management to take that simply over. And you need to build these resources, and you need to give them structure. So you need to go from, if we talk specifically about product management departments, right? You need to go from a scheduling focused. That's why we used to call it project managers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's your title, right? Titles are
irrelevant and messed up.
Irrelevant, and why they just use it however they want, right? Look at your work. What are you doing in product management? Are you responsible for the product really? Yeah. Can you do discovery? Are you exposed to the end customers? Right. These are like signs of, okay, am I really doing product management, or is it more like a project scheduling task, right? And I think you like shifting it to a product organization. We often see that you need more resources. We often see that you need to get way closer to the clients and to the market. You need to build up a consciousness of where you want to go, right? Like to really drive these decisions, you need to understand the market, where they go. It's a lot easier when you just get the tasks from your clients, what you need to do. Like that's simple, actually, right? And these are the differences in the organization.
So I imagine like the person that you were talking to today, right? You're the head of product at an organization. You can see that there is this desire at some level, but there is not, right? We're not necessarily empowered. And I could sense that for a leader who hadn't gone through this before, it could feel very overwhelming. Like, well, just throw my hands up. There's nothing I can do. I can just fix, my group, which is obviously not the right answer and does not a leader make. But if you were coaching someone who is in this situation, what are the first steps? What are the yes, there's lots of work to do, but let's just start with these core basics that you would have them focus on?
Yeah. Just going briefly back to the client today, in such organizations, it feels that you almost don't know where to start, right? We don't have a clear product strategy. I'm not sure if I have the role and the responsibility to do that. We get a lot of stuff from sales pushed into our backlog, and it feels like, okay, I have no idea where to start, right?
Yep.
Often in bigger organizations, you have also a transformation team, right, which is in the mandate of the C-level, trying to achieve that. And it's really hard, because what we described in the book, and if you think about it, right, it's a book about product management, and we don't talk about product management that much, right? Because we think that the biggest challenge for product is actually the organization around it. So what I would advise those people in this situation is educate yourself and understand the implications with the other departments. So go through the book. We have a free assessment that makes you aware where you stand today. Because, you need to understand these implications. And when I said, okay, complex project gives you a headache in engineering in the long run, right? You need to be able to discuss these kinds of things in your organization with the responsible people.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to understand the whole system, in order to start changing it. That's the first step. You need to understand it yourself. So, read the book, make the assessment, do something else, go to, talk to other people who did the transformation or had the similar challenge, right? So you need to understand the implication. And then second step is that you somehow align with the leadership level. You need to have that common picture. what do we need to change in order to be more scalable? And there, you need one big supporter. Either it's your CEO or maybe it's an investor. But, you need these forces who say, okay, we need to change something. Otherwise, it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
And then, then starts the discussion, okay, what do we need to shift? How do we need to change? How can we win this market or the scalability game?
Yeah, that makes sense. Find out where you are today, right? And it is neat because like at every chapter, there's like a little QR code so you can get your assessment. But find out where you are today and how use that to help prioritize. But a lot of it is going to be being the champion, or at least the helping the organization see the vision of what is where the gaps are, but also what the advantage is. Like, look, if we really want to do this, this is what it looks like. And really don't shy away from those hard conversations, but make sure that you're having them with your peers and necessarily above, so that you're all very consciously talking about it. And there's not a, well, you, sir, are in charge of making us product led or in product mode, but everyone else is going to keep doing what they're doing.
No, that doesn't work.
No. That will not make anyone happy or at peace.
Well, it's not a kingdom that you can decide whatever you want. It would be nice,
Wouldn't that be? Yeah. Product,
nice, right?
Product monarch. That's my new role.
Get a small crown and then
just make it so. All right. This was super fun, Thomas. And again, I do highly recommend the book. It was, and you guys talk about it, like intentionally. It was a quick read because it gives you just a nice framework piece. And it really does focus, like you said, not on what is product management, but if you are leading this transition or wanting to lead this transition, what are the areas of the organization that you really need to think about and those implications? Because you, again, having gone through this or tried to, we had tried unsuccessfully, you could see where all of these pieces had really come up, and they weren't all expected. I think I had expected more of the product and engineering one. Like that was an easier piece, but there was implications all throughout the organization that I think, if we had this, would have been much more helpful for us. So I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
If people want to find the book or if they want to learn more from you, Thomas, where should we send them?
Well, just it's on Amazon, available hopefully worldwide.
It is indeed.
Yeah. And otherwise, you can go to product-masterclass.com and find more information about the book and also the Product Masterclass. Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, Thomas. This is a great conversation.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I really enjoyed it.
All right. That does it for today's episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And don't forget to join us next week when we tackle another great topic designed to elevate your product, your company, and your career.